Jake ruled high school like a king. He didn't wear a crown, but he might as well have. Wherever he went, people stepped aside. He had the loudest voice, the biggest laugh, and the sharpest tongue. But he wasn't known for kindness. He was known for cruel jokes, and everyone was a target. If someone had an accent, Jake mocked it. If someone wore old clothes, he made a big show out of it. If someone was shy or different, Jake made sure the whole class noticed. He was the kind of guy who turned pain into a punchline. And people laughed. Not because they thought it was funny, but because they were afraid to be next. One of his favorite targets was Aisha, a quiet girl with deep eyes and a soft voice. She never spoke unless called on. Her English wasn't perfect. Her skin tone, her silence, her smile, it all made her stand out. And Jake hated anything he couldn't control. "Hey, Aisha, say that again in American." He'd shout across the room. The class would roar. Aisha would lower her eyes, and Jake would smirk like he won something. But that was 10 years ago. Now the reunion is tonight. The same students, the same gym, the same old Jake, still laughing, still loud. He thinks it'll be just like before. What he doesn't know is that Aisha is coming too, and this time she's not the one being laughed at. The joke is finally on him. Back in high school, Jake wasn't just popular, he controlled the halls like he owned them. He didn't play sports. He wasn't top of the class, but still, he was everywhere. Loud, confident, and always making people laugh. He walked the halls like they were a stage. He always had a crowd. People hung around him like flies to light. And every day he needed a new target for his jokes. If someone wore hand-me-downs, he'd say, "Nice fashion. Did you pull that out of a donation bin?" If someone brought food from home that smelled different, he'd hold his nose and shout, "Who brought garbage for lunch?" Teachers told him to stop, but only weakly. Most just rolled their eyes. Some even laughed, thinking he was just being a teenager. But for the people he bullied, it wasn't funny. It hurt every day, especially for someone like Aisha. She was quiet, always sitting in the back row, books in her lap, her hair tied back neatly. She never interrupted, never raised her voice. Her accent made her sound different, and Jake loved turning that into a game. "Say refrigerator." He'd shout at her in the cafeteria. "Come on, say it again." Kids around him would laugh while she quietly stared at her tray, wishing to disappear. Jake knew who to pick. He never made fun of the loud ones, never the rich ones. He went after the quiet, the kind, the kids who couldn't fight back. And the worst part? People let him. Some laughed just to fit in. Others stayed silent because they were scared. No one told him to stop. Not really, because Jake was cool. And back then, being cool meant getting away with anything. He thought life would always be like that people like Aisha would always be small, that he'd always be the one on top. But Jake forgot something important. Time doesn't forget, and karma never misses. In high school, Aisha wasn't just ignored, she was mocked. Not just by Jake, but by almost everyone. It started small. A look, a whisper, a giggle behind her back. Aisha was different. She had just moved from another country. Her English wasn't perfect, and she spoke softly, carefully, trying to hide her accent. She dressed in simple clothes, always clean but never flashy. Her lunch was homemade, full of spices and smells most kids didn't recognize. And Jake noticed all of it. "What even is that?" "Smells like a science experiment," he shouted one day across the lunchroom. Everyone laughed. Aisha quietly closed her lunchbox. Every time she tried to read aloud in class, Jake would mimic her. Every time she answered a question right, he'd roll his eyes and say, "Teacher's pet with an accent? Great!" Soon, others joined in, not because they hated her, but because it was easier to laugh than to stand up. The loud kids laughed to stay close to Jake. The quiet kids stayed silent to stay invisible. And the teachers? They gave weak warnings and moved on. "Grow up, Marcus. You'll be flipping burgers one day. Let's see how far that smart girl stuff takes you." Even her yearbook was cruel. Instead of nice messages, it was full of sarcasm and jokes. "Hope you find a job reading books all day. Don't forget us when you become president of Nerdland." CEO of what? Cleaning? She took it home, placed it on her shelf, and never opened it again. But what no one saw was what Aisha did in the background. While others were partying, Aisha was studying. While they laughed, she planned. While Jake made jokes, she made progress. No one noticed the quiet girl walking to the library every afternoon. No one saw the scholarship she was applying for. No one cared to ask about her dreams. Because back then, Aisha was easy to ignore, easy to joke about, easy to underestimate. But things change, and the people they laughed at, they don't always stay small. 10 years. It had been 10 whole years since Jake last walked through the halls of his high school. 10 years since those loud lunch tables, cheap cologne in gym lockers, and yearbook scribbles. For some, high school was just a memory. For others, it was the best time of their lives. Jake was one of those people. He still smiled when he thought about it. "Man, those were the days," he would say to his coworkers at the car lot. "I ran that place." So when the reunion email popped up, Jake was thrilled. "You're invited to the 10-year high school reunion. Come see familiar faces, reconnect with old friends, and celebrate where life has taken you." There was a link to RSVP, a list of teachers who would be attending, a few photos from the yearbook, faces frozen in time. Jake smirked when he saw them. There was Marcus, the nerd who used to carry a calculator in his pocket, Tina, the girl he used to call Too Tall Tina, and Aisha, just barely visible in the back row of the class photo. He didn't think much of her. In fact, most people didn't mention her at all. On the class group chat, people joked about the past. "Remember those cafeteria hot dogs? Jake, are you still cracking jokes? Let's see who peaked in high school." Jake typed, "I'll be there." Some of us still look good. Everyone laughed. No one asked about Aisha. No one wondered where she was or what she was doing now. As far as the group was concerned, she was probably working behind a desk somewhere. Quiet, boring, invisible, just like always. But Aisha saw the announcement too, and when she did, she didn't smile. She simply sat back in her luxury office reading the email in silence. Outside her floor-to-ceiling windows, the city lights stretched for miles. She clicked, "Yes, attending," then closed the laptop without a word. She had a reason for going, but it had nothing to do with catching up. Jake looked at himself in the mirror and smirked. 10 years since high school, and honestly, he thought he still looked great. Maybe a little thicker around the waist. A little less hair on top, but his confidence hadn't gone anywhere. He pulled open his closet and started flipping through shirts. Nothing looked big enough for a reunion. This wasn't just any night. This was a chance to remind everyone he was still on top. "I need something that says successful, but fun," he mumbled to himself. He picked a dark blue blazer with gold buttons. Cheap. Flashy and slightly too tight. Then a chain. A loud one. He slipped it over his neck like it was a badge of success. Jake wasn't rich. He ran a used car dealership with his cousin. Business had been rough the last few months. Sales were down. His supplier had pulled out of their contract. And honestly, the bank was calling too often. But Jake wasn't going to let anyone see that. He printed fake business cards that said, "Vice President, Regional Sales." He practiced his handshake in the mirror, gave himself a wink, and pointed like he used to. "Still got it," he said. Before heading out, he opened his phone and scrolled through old photos, yearbook memories, prom, parties, football games he didn't play in but still showed up for. He liked remembering when people cheered for him, when teachers gave him a free pass because he was funny, when girls laughed at his jokes, even if they were mean. This reunion, he thought, is going to remind them who the king still is. He didn't even think about who else might be going. He didn't ask about the quiet kids, or wonder how life had changed for anyone he used to bully. In Jake's mind, the world still worked the way it always had. Loud wins, confidence sells, and people like Aisha, they disappear. But he was wrong. Because while Jake was shining his shoes and practicing his smirk, Aisha was flying first class in silence, dressed in a custom-tailored suit, closing million-dollar deals on her phone with his supplier, and he had no idea. The gym hadn't changed much. Same dusty blue walls, same old basketball hoops, same shiny floor polished just enough for special events. But tonight it was decorated with silver balloons, string lights, and a big white banner that read, "Welcome back, class of 2015. People were already arriving, laughing as they hugged, taking selfies, and pointing out familiar faces. There was a mix of excitement and nerves in the air, everyone trying to prove they'd made it. Some came dressed in expensive suits, others in stylish dresses. Some brought their spouses. Some came alone. There were a few teachers near the punch table, smiling as their former students approached. Then came Jake. He pushed through the doors like he owned the place, grinning loud and dressed like a walking sales pitch. "Well, well, look who it is," he shouted, spotting old classmates. "Still short, huh, Marcus? Tina, you shrank or what?" People laughed politely. Some rolled their eyes. But Jake didn't notice. He was too busy soaking in the moment. He walked around shaking hands, handing out his fake business cards like candy. He bragged about his dealership, exaggerated his numbers, and cracked jokes every chance he got. "What can I say?" He laughed. "Success looks good on me." He stood at the center of the gym like a spotlight naturally followed him. In his mind, the reunion was exactly what he imagined, a chance to show he was still the king. But then the music lowered. The crowd quieted just a little, and she walked in. Aisha. No fanfare. No announcement. Just quiet heels clicking on the floor, a tailored suit, and calm confidence. She didn't look around nervously. She didn't clutch a purse or hide in a corner. She walked in like she belonged, like this place didn't scare her anymore. Some classmates did a double take. Was that really her? The girl they barely remembered? The quiet one Jake used to joke about? She looked powerful. Her posture, her clothes, even the way she moved. She didn't look like someone attending. She looked like someone hosting. Jake didn't notice her at first. He was too busy talking about monthly sales projections. But soon, the whispers started. "That's Aisha?" "No way." "She's doing something big now, right? Didn't she make Forbes or something?" Jake squinted toward the doorway. His smile faltered just slightly. The queen had entered. And the king? He just didn't know yet. His crown was slipping. Jake stood by the punch table, mid-laugh, still bragging about his latest deal to a small group of former classmates. He was loud, animated, arms waving, chain swinging, completely caught up in his own spotlight. Then someone nearby whispered, "Hey, is that Aisha?" Jake paused, confused. "Aisha who?" he said with a smirk. "You mean Quiet Aisha? The bookworm?" He turned around slowly, half expecting to see a shy girl with glasses and a backpack, hiding behind a plate of food. But what he saw wasn't that. Across the gym stood a woman in a sharp charcoal suit, hair tied neatly, subtle, expensive earrings. She wasn't standing in the background. She was speaking calmly with a former teacher, smiling with real grace, composed, elegant, almost glowing. Jake squinted. That's not Aisha," he said. But it was. And the others around him nodded. "That's her, man. I heard she's a CEO now or something. Big company? Real serious." Jake stared longer, still not convinced. She was too confident, too polished. That couldn't be the same. Girl he used to call the ghost, because she barely spoke in class. He watched as Aisha turned to greet another former classmate. She offered a kind smile, made eye contact, listened. People leaned in when she spoke. She had that presence, the kind that makes people feel like they're meeting someone important. And Jake? Jake suddenly felt smaller. Still, he puffed his chest out. "Pfft, CEO? Yeah, right. Of what? A startup that sells bookmarks?" The others didn't laugh. He remembered making jokes at her expense, pretending to translate her English in front of everyone. He remembered pushing her books off her desk once just to make people laugh. And now here she was, not shy, not stuttering, not hiding in the back. She looked like she owned the building. But still, Jake chuckled nervously, trying to shake off the weird feeling creeping up his neck. "Whatever," he muttered. "She probably still remembers I was the funny one." And with that false confidence clinging to him like cheap cologne, Jake decided to approach her. He had no idea that this moment, this little walk across the gym floor, was about to flip his world upside down. Because Aisha remembered everything. And this time, she had all the power. Jake adjusted his collar. He pulled his sleeves down and made sure his gold chain was still shining. He didn't know why his palms were suddenly sweaty. "Just say hi," he told himself. "She probably remembers you. Maybe she'll laugh. Maybe she'll even be impressed." The gym floor seemed longer now as he walked toward her. Each step felt heavier. The laughter behind him faded. His usual charm? It felt shaky. Aisha was still talking to someone when Jake approached. Someone from the yearbook club, he thought. She was nodding politely, holding a glass of sparkling water. She hadn't noticed him yet. Jake cleared his throat. Aisha? She turned slowly. Her expression didn't change. No surprise, no fear, no nervousness. She looked at him the way a CEO looks at a forgotten name on a long list. Jake forced a grin. Wow, look at you. I almost didn't recognize you. You look different. Good different. Aisha paused before answering. Hello, Jake. Her voice was calm, smooth, no accent, no stumbling, just sharp and measured, like a woman used to boardroom, silence, and negotiation tables. Jake chuckled awkwardly. Still remember me, huh? Hard to forget the class clown. Aisha tilted her head slightly. Hard to forget. Yes. He laughed again, louder than necessary. So, I hear you're doing well for yourself. CEO, huh? That's big stuff. What kind of company is it again? She took a sip of water before answering. Fortune 500, global logistics and supply chain? We recently acquired several smaller firms in the Midwest. Jake nodded like he understood, though he didn't. Right, logistics. That's like shipping, right? Hey, maybe we're even in the same business. She looked at him carefully. You run a dealership? Yeah, used cars. We were getting our parts from this small supplier until a few months ago. They got bought out. Real mess! Aisha blinked, just once. That supplier was ours. Silence. It hit Jake like a cold wave. He tried to keep smiling, but his mouth twitched. Wait, you're the one who bought them? Yes. Aisha didn't blink this time. Jake stared at her, stunned. Suddenly, the gym was too warm. His fake business cards in his pocket felt like paper lies. His chain didn't shine so bright under the lights anymore. Huh, he muttered. Small world, isn't it? She said softly. There was no anger in her voice, no raised eyebrows, but something in her tone made him feel exposed, like she saw through him, past the blazer, past the jokes, past the old memories. He cleared his throat again. Well, hey, if there's ever a chance to, work something out. My cousin and I could really use a new parts line. Just saying. There it was. The tiniest smile curved on Aisha's lips, not cruel. Not kind, just powerful. You're welcome to apply, she said. We post all job openings online. I'll let HR know you're interested. Jake blinked. Apply? Like everyone else, she said. And then she turned, calmly, gracefully. She walked away, heels clicking gently on the floor, back into the crowd. Jake was left standing there, alone, quiet. For the first time in years, he wasn't the loudest person in the room. He wasn't the king. He was just another name in a long line. Jake didn't move right away. He stood there in the middle of the gym, surrounded by old classmates, music, and laughter. But it all felt far away now. Like a movie he wasn't part of anymore. Just moments ago, he was laughing, joking, handing out business cards like a big shot. Now his chest felt tight. His face was hot. He wasn't sure if he was embarrassed or afraid. Apply like everyone else. Her words echoed in his mind again. She hadn't raised her voice. She hadn't humiliated him. She didn't need to. Aisha had done something worse. She stayed calm. She treated him like he was ordinary, and Jake wasn't used to that. Back in high school, he was somebody. People laughed at his jokes, even the mean ones. They followed him, copied his style, laughed when he made fun of others, especially Aisha. Back then, she never fought back. She just stayed quiet, sat in the corner, ate lunch alone. She didn't even cry when he mocked her accent or asked if she knew what deodorant was in her country. He thought she was weak. But now she was everything he had pretended to be. Wealthy, respected, in control. Jake finally turned around and walked toward the food table. His smile was gone. The fake one he'd practiced in the mirror. He grabbed a cup of punch with a shaky hand. A few classmates were whispering nearby. They glanced at him, then quickly looked away. Did she really say that? I heard he begged her. Serves him right. Jake's ears burned. His pride felt bruised. Worse, he knew the truth. He wasn't the boss in the room anymore. He took out one of his business cards from his pocket and stared at it. Jake Weller, Weller Auto and Sales. No credit? No problem. It looked cheap now. He flipped it over. Blank on the back. No website. No company logo. Just an act, a mask. He thought back to that moment. Aisha's calm face, her even tone. No sarcasm. No revenge speech. No dramatic insult. Just the truth. You're welcome to apply. He realized something then. Aisha hadn't come back to humiliate him. She didn't care about revenge. She came back because she didn't need to prove anything anymore. She already won. And Jake? He was stuck in the past, still trying to be the guy everyone clapped for in high school. He felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Shame, real painful shame. The kind that sticks to your ribs and whispers, "You're not who you pretend to be." Later that night, Jake sat in his small apartment above the used car lot. The lights flickered slightly, the heater buzzed, and the place smelled faintly of old coffee and oil. The reunion was over. The laughter had faded, but Jake couldn't sleep. Aisha's calm voice still echoed in his head. "You're welcome to apply, like everyone else." He sat at his worn-out desk, his phone face down next to a pile of overdue invoices. For the first time in years, he felt small. Not because Aisha was rich, not because she was powerful, but because she had changed, and he hadn't. Jake leaned back in his squeaky chair and looked at the ceiling. He had spent years pretending he was the boss. He wore gold chains, loud jackets, and expensive cologne he couldn't afford. He thought he was still winning if he could make people laugh, even at someone else's pain, but the reunion shattered all of that. He opened his old laptop. It took forever to start. The fan wheezed. The screen blinked twice. He searched for Aisha's company online. Allied Core Global Solutions, he read out loud. Global. Fortune 500. Over 10,000 employees. Offices in 5 countries. Jake blinked. He had made fun of her accent. She now ran meetings in 3 languages. He scrolled through the website, looking for something, anything, that would put him back in control. He clicked Careers. The page loaded slowly. Job openings. He saw listings for warehouse staff, junior supply analysts, driver coordinators. One caught his eye. Regional parts partner, Midwest operations. He clicked it. The description was simple. Coordinate with used car dealerships and garages to manage timely delivery of parts. Requires organization, clear communication, and strong ethics. Jake's heart sank a little. Strong ethics, he whispered. He sat back and stared at the screen. Should he do it? Should he really apply? Would she even see it? What if she laughed? But deep down he knew something. Aisha didn't need to laugh. She wouldn't mock him. She had risen too far to waste her time on revenge. And somehow, that made it worse. She wouldn't hurt him. She didn't have to. Life had already done that. Jake sighed, ran his hand through his thinning hair, and clicked Apply Now. The page asked for a resume. He didn't have one. He Googled how to write a resume with car dealership experience. He stayed up for 2 more hours writing it. It was messy. It was short. But for the first time in a long time, it was honest. He attached it, typed his email, and clicked Submit. Then he sat back. No applause, no laughs. No one to impress. Just silence. But something felt different. It was like he had finally stepped off the fake stage he'd been performing on for years. For once, he wasn't pretending to be something he wasn't. He was just Jake, flawed, humbled, and maybe ready to start over. A full week passed. Jake checked his email every morning. He kept telling himself he didn't care. It's just a backup, he muttered. I've still got the lot. I can still sell cars. But the truth? Business was bad. Since Aisha's company took over his supplier, parts were harder to get and more expensive. Customers were going elsewhere. The phones barely rang. Each day, Jake grew more restless. He kept replaying the reunion in his mind. The way Aisha had looked him straight in the eyes. Calm, confident. He used to see her as weak. But now, she was everything he wished he could be. Then, one Tuesday morning, just after 9 a.m., his phone buzzed. Email Allied Core Global Application Update. Jake's heart jumped. His finger hovered over the screen before he tapped it. Dear Mr. Weller, thank you for applying for the Regional Parts Partner position at Allied Core Global. We would like to invite you to a preliminary interview with our hiring team. This Friday via Zoom. Jake stared at the screen. His mouth dropped open. He read the email 3 times just to be sure. They actually responded, he whispered. Then it hit him. The interview was just 3 days away, and he had nothing ready. No proper suit, No quiet space to talk. No idea what to say. He opened YouTube and searched. How to pass a job interview. He watched videos with serious-looking men in ties giving tips. He took notes, practiced his answers in front of a mirror. That night, he didn't go out for drinks like he usually did. He stayed in. He ironed his one clean shirt. He cleaned off his desk and tested his webcam twice. Friday came. Jake logged into the Zoom call 5 minutes early. He sat straight, smoothed his hair, tried to keep his knee from bouncing. Then a woman from HR joined the call. Not Aisha, just a calm voice smiling politely. "Hi, Jake, thank you for being here," she said. "We've reviewed your resume. We'd like to know more about your experience working with auto dealerships." Jake did his best. He told them about his 10 years running the lot, how he'd built relationships with local mechanics, how he managed part deliveries, even if it meant driving across state lines himself. He didn't exaggerate. He didn't crack jokes. He just told the truth. For once, that felt like enough. The HR rep nodded. "Thank you, Jake. We'll follow up soon." Jake left the call and sat back, exhausted. But inside, he felt lighter. He had actually done it. No shortcuts. No charm, just effort. That evening, he got another email. Subject, next steps with Allied Core Global. His hands trembled as he opened it. "Dear Mr. Weller, we're pleased to inform you that you've advanced to the next round of interviews. Your second interview will be with a senior executive overseeing regional logistics." Jake's eyes moved to the next line. "Your interview will be conducted by Aisha Khan, Chief Executive Officer." He froze. A chill went down his back. It was happening. Face to face again. Not at a reunion, not in a school gym, but in a virtual boardroom where she was in charge. Friday, 2:55 p.m. Jake sat in front of his laptop again, but this time, it wasn't just nerves. It was fear. He kept checking the time in the corner of the screen. He adjusted his collar, checked his lighting, checked his background. He had even borrowed a small bookshelf from his neighbor to make his apartment look more professional. "It's just an interview," he whispered. "Just another person." But he knew that wasn't true. This wasn't just anyone. This was Aisha, the girl he used to mock, tease, embarrass, for no reason other than being quiet and different. He had forgotten her name back then. But now, he'd never forget it. The screen flickered. The Zoom waiting room vanished. She appeared. Aisha looked sharp in a soft gray blazer with her hair tied neatly back. Her background was a clean office, real, not virtual. Behind her was a window showing a city skyline, somewhere far above the world Jake lived in. "Good afternoon, Mr. Weller," she said. Her voice was calm, professional. Not angry, not warm, just composed. Jake swallowed hard. "Hi. Good afternoon, Miss Khan." There was a pause. Not long, but enough. "Let's begin," she said. "I've reviewed your file and interview notes. You have experience in used car operations, correct?" "Yes," Jake nodded quickly. 10 years. Ran my own dealership. Small, but we stayed afloat. Your supplier history shows late payments. A few complaints about delays," Aisha noted, glancing at something off-screen. "But I also see some customer loyalty. Same clients returning." Jake sat straighter. "Yeah, I tried to take care of my people. Even when things got tight. I always kept my word, eventually." Aisha nodded slowly. "You applied for a role that supports our regional supply chain. Why do you want this job?" Jake hesitated. He could lie. Say it was for growth, opportunity, a new challenge. But the truth was sitting on his shoulders like a weight. So he said it. "Because my business is dying. I didn't change fast enough. And now I need to work somewhere that actually knows what they're doing." Silence. Aisha studied him. Jake felt his palms start to sweat. "I'm not proud of how I acted back in school," he added, voice lower now. "To you or to others. I know that's not what this interview is about, but I just wanted to say it." She didn't smile. She didn't nod. She simply blinked and asked, "Is this apology part of your interview strategy?" Jake blinked. "No," he said honestly. "It's just overdue." A longer pause followed. Then, Aisha leaned back slightly and folded her hands. "Jake, this company doesn't hire based on apologies. We hire based on effort, values, and results. I don't care who you were in high school. I care who you are at 9 a.m. on a Monday when someone needs answers." Jake nodded. Understood. Aisha glanced again at her screen. You've moved to the final consideration round. The HR department will follow up. I won't be part of the hiring vote from here. Jake's eyebrows lifted. You're not? No, she replied. I built the company to run without my personal biases. If you're hired, it will be because you earned it, not because of me. Or in spite of me. She paused. Anything else you'd like to say? Jake shook his head slowly. Just thank you. For the chance. Aisha looked at him for a moment longer, then gave the smallest of nods. Good luck, Mr. Weller. And then, click, she was gone. The Zoom window closed. Jake sat alone again. No music, no audience, no stage, just silence. But this time, it didn't feel heavy. It felt like the end of something fake, and maybe the beginning of something real. 3 days passed. Jake checked his phone every hour. Every buzz, every ding, he jumped, but it was never the one he was waiting for. He couldn't focus. The dealership was quieter than ever. His cousin barely spoke anymore. There was tension in the air, the kind of silence that comes before something closes for good. Jake stared out the window of his tiny office, watching cars roll by. Maybe this is it, he thought. Maybe Aisha saw right through me. Maybe I don't deserve a second chance. He kept replaying their Zoom call. Her face, her voice, her words. We hire based on effort, values, and results. I don't care who you were in high school. If you're hired, it will be because you earned it. Jake had never been spoken to like that. Not with cruelty. Not with kindness. Just honesty. He respected it more than he could admit. Then, on the 4th day, his phone buzzed again. An email. Subject, Allied Core Global, job offer. He froze. The screen stayed untouched for almost a full minute. His heart thudded in his chest. Then slowly he opened it. Dear Mr. Weller, we are pleased to offer you the position of Regional Logistics Associate with Allied Core Global. He stopped reading. His eyes welled up. They picked him. They actually picked him. Jake sank back into his chair, the weight of years collapsing on him. This wasn't about saving his business anymore. This was about saving himself. He read the full email again. Competitive salary, benefits, a 3-month probation period, weekly team meetings with direct reports, room for growth. Jake laughed softly to himself. Probation, of course. It made sense. He wasn't trusted yet. But maybe that was fair. Maybe trust was something he'd have to build, like a real man. At the bottom of the email, a single line stood out. If you accept, please sign and return the digital contract within 48 hours. Jake looked around his tiny office one last time. The broken clock, the stained calendar, the used cars out front that no one wanted anymore. He didn't hesitate. He clicked accept. He signed his name. He hit send. It was done. Later that night, Jake sat alone on the back steps of his apartment, drinking cheap coffee, staring at the stars. He thought about high school, how easy everything felt back then, how wrong he had been about people. He thought about Aisha. Quiet Aisha, smart Aisha, CEO Aisha. She hadn't slammed the door in his face. She hadn't humiliated him, even though she could have. She had let the system speak for itself. She let karma do the work. Jake smiled just a little. Fair enough, he whispered. And for the first time in a long time, he felt like maybe, just maybe, he was ready to grow up. Jake woke up early, before the sun. His alarm buzzed at 5:30 a.m., but he was already awake. He had barely slept. Not from stress this time, but from something new. Hope. Mixed with nerves. He opened his closet. No more flashy shirts with shiny buttons. No car dealer jackets with his name embroidered on the chest. Today, he wore a plain white shirt, a navy blazer, and dark jeans. He looked at himself in the mirror. He almost didn't recognize the man staring back. You're not selling used cars today, he whispered. You're stepping into a real company. Time to act like it. He took the subway for the first time in years. The train was packed with people in suits, people with coffee, people checking emails on tablets. Jake sat still. No one knew who he was here. No one cared about his past. There were no classmates watching him. No fake laughs. Just strangers chasing something. It was humbling. He reached the tall glass building at 8:45 a.m., Allied Core Global. The logo shimmered in silver above the revolving doors. He stepped inside. The lobby was massive, quiet, polished. People walked by quickly with purpose. No one looked lost. Jake felt small, but not in a bad way. At the front desk, he gave his name. A polite young woman handed him a badge with his picture and a small welcome folder. "You're on the 14th floor. Mr. Weller, HR will meet you by the elevators." Jake thanked her and moved toward the elevators. Inside the elevator, he stared at the numbers blinking as the floors passed. 4, 7, 11. Don't screw this up, he told himself. The 14th floor was bright and modern. Glass offices, open workspaces, soft hums of computers. A man in his mid-30s greeted him. "Jake, I'm Daniel from HR. Welcome to Allied Corps. Let's get you settled." Daniel walked him through everything. His desk, his login, his orientation packet, introduced him to a few team members. Some smiled politely, others barely noticed. That was okay. Jake didn't expect applause. He just wanted a clean slate. By 10 a.m., he was in a team meeting. The manager, a woman named Priya, asked everyone to share a quick intro. Jake waited his turn, heart racing. "I'm Jake Weller. I ran a small auto dealership for years. I'm here to learn and help however I can. No jokes, no bragging, just honesty." A few people nodded. Priya gave a small smile. "Thanks, Jake. Glad to have you." By lunchtime, Jake's head was spinning. New software, new terms, new systems. It was overwhelming. Back at his dealership, he was the system. Here he was a gear in a much bigger machine. He ate lunch at his desk, quietly, watching. He noticed how everyone used respectful tones, how people listened during meetings. No shouting, no backslapping or trash talking, just professionalism and teamwork. Jake liked it. He didn't miss being the loudest voice in the room. He didn't miss being in control. What he did miss was respect. But this time he knew it had to be earned, not demanded. At 5:01 p.m., the lights dimmed slightly. People started packing up. Jake stayed an extra 15 minutes, double-checking the notes from training. No one told him to. He just didn't want to fall behind. On his way out, he passed by the executive floor. He paused near the glass hallway, wondering if Aisha was inside one of those offices. But he didn't go in. He didn't try to get her attention. She had already given him something more powerful than a job. A second chance. Jake walked out of the building into the cool evening air. The city lights blinked above him. He smiled, genuinely. Not bad for day one. And for the first time in his adult life, he didn't feel like a fraud. Jake didn't expect anything from her. He didn't need to. He had gotten the job. He had survived the first week. He was learning, staying late. And for the first time, he was earning people's trust, not demanding it. And still, a small part of him wondered, did she even notice I was hired? Was it just paperwork to her? But late Friday afternoon, something unexpected happened. Jake was at his desk reviewing shipping reports when his inbox pinged. Subject, a quick note, from Aisha. He froze. The CEO. He clicked it open immediately. From Aisha M. To Jake Weller. Subject, welcome. Hi, Jake. I heard you made it through your first week. Congrats. I know it probably wasn't easy walking into this company, especially under the circumstances. It takes a different kind of strength to humble yourself and start again. I want you to know that your hiring process was fair. You weren't given a job because of me. You were considered, tested, and accepted, just like anyone else. And if you're here to grow, I truly wish you success. We don't hold grudges here. We hold standards. Aisha M., CEO. Allied Corps Global. Jake leaned back in his chair, reading it twice. Then 3 times. No sarcasm. No revenge. Just calm, clean truth. It wasn't what he expected. It wasn't cold. But it wasn't warm either. It was something better. Professional, direct, powerful. She had said everything she needed to say. She hadn't mentioned the jokes. She hadn't brought up the past. She hadn't needed to, because she didn't live there anymore. She had moved on. Jake stared at the screen. For a long time, he didn't type a reply. What could he even say? But finally, he started typing. Dear Aisha, thank you for everything. For being better than I ever was in high school. For seeing something in me I didn't. For showing what strength actually looks like. I won't waste this. Jake. He hovered over send, then hit the button. That was it. No more pretending. No more image to protect. Just a man who once laughed at others, now learning how to laugh at himself and grow from it. Jake walks out of the Allied Corps building again, briefcase in hand. No flashy suit, no fake smile, just a quiet man walking forward. He used to rule the hallways with jokes and cruelty. But life has a way of turning tables. The loudest ones fall the hardest. The quiet ones rise the highest. And sometimes, the best revenge is becoming the boss.